Hey, what's up, world, and welcome to episode 145 of the Take One podcast. I am your host, August C. Jones, and today we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about New Mutants possibly going to PVOD, the new trailer as an add-on to Mortal Kombat 11 called Aftermath, as well as the beef between the movie theaters and Universal Pictures is starting to heat up, as well as Oscars is changing the rules for streaming. And what's new to rent on the stream for this week. And I'm going to be doing a movie review on the movie Extraction on Netflix. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into things. So to start off everything, New Mutants, a movie that has been basically just cursed. I don't know what it is about this movie. It's been pushed from its first release date like 3 more times after that, and it comes this year, and it was looking like it was finally about to come out, like it was finally about to get its day in the sun, and COVID-19 hit, and it's like every other movie, even the major big blockbuster movies that is more than likely going to make money, has been lifted from its release date, pushed to later on this year or next year, or even like some movies are looking like they're going to go straight to streaming or straight to just PVOD. And New Mutants, man, cannot catch a break. So, recently, a couple things have came out about the New Mutants. A couple new developments. One, there were new images that came out in the magazine called Cinefex. And they got some really good images of this movie. Now, regardless of what you hear, I know a lot of people are still kind of hyped for this movie because of just what it all entails. It is a straight horror film, but in the superhero genre, or it's a superhero film in the horror genre, however you want to look at it. It's both. Like it looks intriguing, even just from the 2 trailers that we've seen. The first trailer went more on the horror side. Second trailer that we got last year, or was it this year? But the recent trailer that we got from it was more. It showed more of the superhero aspect of it, and both of them look good. Both of them look really good. And like just the images. Like, first you see, like, the image of the Demon Bear, which is supposed to be the main antagonist. You see 2 images of the Demon Bear, which looks awesome. I want to see how it looks in the actual movie, but it looks great from the images. As well as you see images from these creatures called the Smiley Men. The Smiley Men, I think it's not the Smiling Men, but the Smiley Men. And they look crazy, and that's the type of imagery I love, because I don't know what it is about like creatures that look like that, like the Crooked Man or just Slender Man or something like that. Like, it's just something about them that's like creepy as hell. It kind of remind me of the I forgot what them creatures was called on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where they just float around town just smiling and basically just cutting out the sound from everyone. Like, stuff like that is just creepy as hell. And these Smiley Men looks just crazy as hell. And like, I didn't know that they were gonna be up in there. And that looks like that really has me hype to see this movie. But other than that, something like a big deal. So it was kind of floating in the air whether it was gonna be pushed to a later date, which I really kind of think it should. You know, I really do want to see it on VOD, but I really want to see it in theaters as well. Like, if things is open up by Halloween, push it toward Halloween. But it briefly popped up on Amazon Prime for $25.99 with no release date, but it was removed shortly after that, which begs the question: is it coming out on VOD? Or was that just kind of a mistake where, you know, somebody at Amazon got the wrong idea and basically put it on there, and it was like, okay, no, it's not going to be on here, whatever. It's still going to hit theaters, but we got the wrong memo. And it was put on VOD, but it was for pre-order. So it wasn't like available to watch when it got put on. It was just available for pre-order. And it begs the question, are they really going to put it on VOD, or was it that somebody ended up getting the wires crossed or got the wrong memo and ended up putting it on there for pre-order, and they wasn't supposed to, at least not yet. So I don't know. It has a lot of speculation on what's happening. As of right now, I haven't found anything that Disney or anybody has said that it's not going to VOD, or basically said whether or not it is going to VOD. But you would think that if this movie were to not go to theaters, if it was to bypass theaters, it would go straight to Disney Plus or Hulu. But because of existing cable deals or cable rights with Fox and that Fox and HBO had, that it's more than likely not going to happen. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with paying whatever I need to pay to watch this movie. Hopefully it's good, but I do want to see this movie in theaters. Hopefully if they do release it on VOD, maybe they re-release it in theaters. And that way, we can get the big screen, experience from this movie, especially if it's not bad, especially if it's really good. So, I mean, hopefully we get to see it sometime soon. I really would rather see it in theaters, but another side of me is like, it's been delayed so many times. You might as well just put it out on VOD. But however I get to watch this movie, I really want to check it out. I want to see if it is good, because it looks really good from the trailers that we've been given. So we'll see. But anyway, let's move over to the next topic, which is the new trailer, or the first trailer to Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath. And once we thought we were done with Mortal Kombat 11 and they were moving on to Mortal Kombat 12 and all that stuff, which they still more than likely are, we get a trailer to a add-on storyline, playable storyline to Mortal Kombat 11, which is called Aftermath, which, from the title, it takes place after the events of Mortal Kombat 11 and carries on the story. So basically what we get from the story is that Shang Tsung comes back right after, or he comes to Liu Kang and Raiden right when Liu Kang is starting to start up the hourglass and fix history and time and all that stuff, and he stops him and lets him know that before you start fucking up everything, this is what you need to know, that you don't have the crown that Kronika had. So now we have to go get that crown in order for the hourglass to work. And so now it's, Shang Tsung, Shiva. Shiva now is a playable character, which she was just as a person that was in the storyline, but you couldn't play as her. She's in the story now. And Fujin. Fujin is back as a playable character in this add-on. And him, Shiva, Nightwolf, Shang Tsung all have to go on this quest to go to Shang Tsung's island to get Kronika's crown, so that everything can go well. And from the trailer, you can kind of get the sense that we all know that Shang Tsung is one of the people that you just can't trust. He has his alliances, but at the same time, he basically has his own self-interest, just kind of like Kano. He's one of them like antagonists that just won't go away. He does his own thing, and he helps people out when it suits him. So that's kind of lingering in the air. And even Kronika says it up in the trailer that, they don't know who, like, the mortals, they don't know who they align themselves with and all that stuff, because Shang Tsung is dangerous. And more than likely, he is kind of like the secret villain toward the end or whatever. And like I said, we see Kronika up in the trailer, but we don't know how much of Kronika we gonna see in this whole, like, game, and this whole, like, storyline or whatnot. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy. Like, I was not expecting this. And the trailer just looks awesome. The music and everything else, the gameplay to this show looks awesome. It showed the gameplay, of course, from Fujin as well as Shiva, the two new characters up in there. As well as we have another character. So as another added on character that's not part of the storyline, but just kind of like the whole Leatherface, Jason, Freddy, and all that stuff, those type of characters, we have RoboCop now this time. It doesn't show any gameplay, but he's in the game. I want to see how he plays. I can't imagine that he's doing a whole lot, because even in the movies, if you're not counting I think it was 2014 one, RoboCop doesn't really have too many like fast movements. So I want to see how that character is going to play. And I really thought that Ash of the Evil Dead was going to be up in here since it was a whole bunch of stuff. But I guess that was just maybe a rumor that people wanted to be real, or maybe it still is possible. But I really want to see Ash from the Evil Dead up in there. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they did say that because of rights they can't have him, but whatever. I really want to see him. As well as there is a new introduction. Basically, it is a new introduction of friendships. Now, we haven't seen those friendships done, I think, ever since, maybe Mortal Kombat 3? It's been a minute since we've seen them. They did away with them and, kept the fatalities, brutalities, and all that stuff, but it's like we haven't seen one. And we've seen 3 of them so far. We've seen Scorpion shoot out his chain and he brings a teddy bear in which he hugs. And then we got Noob Saibot is jumping rope with 2 more of his like clones or whatever. And he's killing it. Like literally he is killing it. Like he could be a part of a competition. And then we got Kano, who is using his laser eye to start up a Barbie, to which he's like cooking food for people and all that stuff, which, Kano, anything nice done from him, like I said before, what I mentioned before, is good. You want Kano on your side, except for the part where he eventually turns on you. But also we get a clip, and the clip looks pretty decent. It got Shiva, Nightwolf, Fujin, and Shang Tsung in this like trying to get the crown, and they're carrying the casket, and Shang Tsung is basically disguised as a Shokan. And so they get basically approached by Aaron Black, Baraka, and a few Tarkatans. And they have a tension-filled face-to-face where Baraka senses that Shang Tsung is the Shokan that's with them. And so he sticks his knife through him or whatever. And so they're ready basically to throw down. And one of the Tarkatans go at him, and Shang Tsung ends up knocking him in the acid. And they see him basically boiling to death, his skin cooking off and all that stuff up in the pool. And he says, "Oh, sorry." Basically, and that's when they go at each other. And then you got Fujin knocking him back with his power. And then Aaron Black shoots a bullet in which Nightwolf, total badassery, takes his axe, throw it at the bullet, and literally splits the bullet in air. Like, that shit is crazy. But overall, this was just crazy as hell. And we got the release date for May 26th, which is later on this month. And I ain't gonna say that I'm about to go cop it, which I really do want to play it, which I may end up, I don't know. I'm still on the fence. But I definitely will watch the cutscene movie. Definitely will, because that looks crazy and I love movies. So, but yeah. But the next topic of this podcast is the whole thing between movie theaters and Universal. So, man, where do I begin? There is just a lot going on with this, just a lot. And I'm gonna try and keep it as like condensed as possible. I'm not trying to make this podcast a little bit too long, but yeah. So last Monday, Universal came out and said that they were simultaneously, from this point on, because of the quote-unquote success of Trolls World Tour with the VOD release, that they were going to release movies in theaters and at the same time release them on VOD, which got AMC and Regal in the uproar. Now, I know a lot of people might be like, they over there shooting themselves in the foot, that theaters, they overreact and that they shouldn't act like this. But just think about it. You have an agreement with somebody where you both can make money, and they go somewhere else and they basically go on their own saying they're like, okay, we're going to do this so where theaters won't make money off of this. So you're going to get us mad. And then from then on, they say they're like, okay, we're still going to do a deal with you, but we're going to split our deal with somebody else as well. So it's like, okay, so that's going to affect our money and our agreement. Like, basically, the movie studios have an agreement with the movie theaters to keep a movie in theaters for a certain amount of time and then have a gap in between the time that it's in theaters and the time that it's on VOD. Sometimes that it changes depending on how good the movie does. You know, if it doesn't do that good, it's going to have a short run in theaters. If it's doing really well, which we've seen with Black Panther, the last 2 Jumanji films, and probably some other films where they actually stayed in theaters even a week or even a month after it was released, even on DVD, which it releases on digital VOD, like I say maybe like some weeks before it comes out on actual DVD. And certain movies even stay in theaters until it comes out on DVD. So that's a long time, a long ass time. And so they have a deal to have all this in place. And if Universal is stepping out and saying we're going to do this to where we're going to like disrupt your money, it's like, of course they're going to be mad. They're going to be mad. And I don't blame the movie studios, because people would be like, oh, well, the movie theaters, they need the movie studios because that's literally what they work off of. Yeah, you're right. But just like the movie theaters business is based off of playing movies, movie theaters or movie studios need movie theaters to play their movies. So it's like one of those things where you can't have one without the other. And just quickly, just movie theaters aren't going anywhere, at least for right now. Movie theaters are going to be around because people are still going to want that movie theater experience. And that's where movies, even Universal Pictures, know that that's where they make their bread and butter. Do you think that Trolls World Tour would have just made over 100 million, would have just made its budget back? No, they wouldn't. They probably would have made more if in theaters, you know, because like even with that hefty price tag of $20 for a rental and all that stuff, the theaters, like the movie studios, they're losing money on Trolls World Tour because they have to pay back not only who they got their loans from, which is basically the bank. They have to pay back marketing, which is not cheap, you know, for this movie. And, you know, they have to pay back a lot of other people, a lot of sources or whatever, before they can actually say that this movie was profitable. This movie was not profitable. However you want to look at it, this movie was not profitable. Like, the budget was 90 to 100 million. It only made over 100 million. So what do you think? They're operating at a loss. This was a success in certain senses, but the overall picture, Trolls World Tour was not a success as far as money, as a money maker. It wasn't one of them things that's going to have other studios looking at as like, oh, this may be the future. No, it's not. Movie theaters are the one big way that movies like this, or just even bigger, make their money. And so it's like it's going to be well needed. So I think Universal needs to kind of like step back and see what they need to do. Because first of all, breaking the agreement that you had with movie theaters to drop Trolls World Tour on DVD or, you know, on VOD was, and without telling them, was just undermined it, you know, was just kind of like bad business. And then to double down on that and say that you're going to do it with a lot of other movies, with releasing, even when theaters open back up, releasing it simultaneously on VOD and movie theaters, like, nah. So yeah, with the movie studios coming out, they basically said that they won't show Universal Studios, Universal Pictures movies in their theaters as long as they're doing that. Not saying that they're banning them, period, but as long as they're going to be dropping them both on VOD or in theaters at the same time, we're not going to be showing your pictures. So you either just stick to our agreement, or you could just go straight to VOD. Because, like I said, just as much as the movie theaters need those movies, those movie studios need the theaters. And even if they don't play, you know, Universal movies, those aren't the only game in town. We have Disney, which last year made the highest grossing movies of that whole entire year. Record breaking. So if they don't have Universal, whatever, cool. You have Disney, you have other movie studios, Paramount has, you know, whatever, but you have other movie studios that can make money. Sony, you have other movie studios that basically can take its place and just, you know, dominate. And where Universal may end up losing money, they gonna more than likely have to eventually come back to the movie theaters like, man, we need this. Because if you look at it, no other movie studio has done this yet. No other one. If this was a new wave and all this stuff, or if they were in the wrong, why haven't Disney done it yet? Why haven't WB done it yet? Because for one, they have an agreement with the studios, or have an agreement with the theaters. Then on top of that, they know that they're not gonna make that much money. If they put Black Widow out, they're not gonna make as much money as it was in theaters. If Universal, that's why they pushed F9 all the way to next year. You know, if they were really bold, they would have put that out on VOD and see how it did. Guarantee you, it would have did well. Don't get me wrong, it would have did well, especially now. But $1 billion movie it possibly could have been? I don't think so. I really don't think so. It could have been. But I mean, WB is doing the same thing that Universal did, but it ran it past the movie theaters with Scoob and saying that, like, yeah, we're gonna drop, Scoob out because this is whatever. We're gonna bypass the theaters, and they got the okay from the movie theaters saying that, like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. But I mean, it's kind of reckless that Universal is trying to stir up all this, and I'm totally back in the movie theaters in this aspect. But yeah, because like when you look at it, Trolls World Tour, like I said, it made back over 100 million with a budget of 90 to 100 million. But they made a statement. The CEO of Universal made a statement saying that it made more than the first Trolls movie within the first 3 weeks, which is a lie. The first Trolls movie box office worldwide was 346 million, and domestically was 153.7 million. Now, if it made 153.7 million, then cool. It made more or as much as the domestic thing. But as far as the worldwide, no, it did not do better than the first Trolls movie. So throw that out the window. So like I said, Trolls is working at a loss, and Universal doesn't need to jump the gun with this, because these are special circumstances surrounding this whole thing, and it may be a totally different story once theaters open back up and people have the choice. I guarantee you, as much as people want to watch movies at home and stuff and not have to leave and all that, there's a lot of people that still want to get out and go have a night out, a date night. With me, I want to see a movie in theaters, because a lot of movies, that's what they're meant for, the big screen. Not the small screen, but the big screen. So, but enough said on that. I'm done. I'm done. I spent enough time on that. So let's move over to the next topic. The Oscars are changing the rules for streaming movies for 1 year. So with everything that's happening and all the movies being shifted to a later date or just lifted and just kind of like in the air, don't know where it's going to land. So Oscars are basically kind of like bending the rules a little bit, or giving leeway to streaming movies, because before, streaming movies were eligible for the Oscars, but what it had to do was that it had to be at a specific theater in not Illinois, in LA for like a week or so before it can be like qualified to be that. And so we see movies like The Irishman be qualified for this year's Oscars, and Roma was last year's, I believe. So you got some Netflix movies that have been on the nominees, or actually have won awards at the Oscars, and they're kind of like opening that up a little bit for like next year's Oscars, because without it, they probably wouldn't have really too many movies to have an Oscars there and everything else. And so they basically are saying that, like, for 1 year only, which I think is going to expand a little bit more. They're going to change the rules. But I'm going to get into that. But it's only for movies that were previously planned for theatrical releases, and those movies will be eligible, which kind of still puts a limit on it, So, I mean, that still doesn't really ride in the range of those movies. But, hey, I mean, I get gotta have some type of limitations. I get that. Like I said, Netflix and Amazon, they tried to do it in the past and got their movies or whatever eligible for, nominations and stuff like that. Which I think that, like, with everything changing, like, even though this is a bad scenario that we're in right now, it does have some light. Like, sometimes the best things come out of, like, really tragic points in people's lives or just points in history. Like something really bad, and it's sad to say this, something really tragically bad or just bad has to happen in order to bring light to people. And I think that this is going to be a way to get the Oscars to change their policies on streaming movies. Now, I'm not saying have every streaming movie or whatever, because a lot of them aren't really Oscar bait, but a lot of them are. So it's like, why limit it to the point where it has to show in theaters? Give it a chance to where it's like people can just watch it streaming, whatever. I mean, if they choose to show it in theaters, whatever, show it in theaters. But let it to be where they don't have to, or they don't have to be that in order to do it. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, I feel like streaming is just kind of like the future, a new way of watching movies and all that stuff, and having our entertainment brought to us just instantaneously without having to leave our crib. So it's like the Oscars need to adhere to that. They need to kind of like adjust everything that they're doing to that. Like, I don't know, like, if it's going to change next year, but within the next 5 years, it's going to change dramatically. That's my prediction. It's going to change dramatically, and they really do need to change it, because a lot of what they're doing it's the old way of thinking. It's the old way of thinking. Movies are changing. Expectations for movies are changing. And streaming has really changed the whole movie experience. I mean, nothing is going to take away the movie theaters, unless we get like far, far, far into the future. But as of like now, the theaters are going to be where they at. The theaters, they're not going to change. But I feel like this whole mind frame of only having movies that were, in theaters or whatever, only nominated for Oscars, I feel like that needs to change. It really does. But yeah, so, and then also, because of everything that's happening, screeners will no longer be sent by mail. But after this year, in 2021, screeners will be switching to a digital platform. So, I don't get screeners because, I'm not that loved or not that big, or, people don't care about me. But, that's basically going to be the new way of receiving like these movies. And also, it's related but unrelated to what we're talking about. Sound editing and sound mixing and the Oscars will be in the same category from now on, instead of two separate categories, because it is fucking confusing. I still haven't grasped what it is. One is natural sound, and the other one is just how everything comes together. So yeah, that's it. I guess that's what it is. So anyway. Now, let's go ahead and get right into everything that's new to rent on the stream as of May 5th. So, all the digital releases is Emma, Greed, and Blue Story. And as of physical releases is Gretel and Hansel, Bloodshot, I Still Believe, The Lodge, and Greed. So, those are all the movies that are available to you. So, if any of those movies that you haven't seen and you want to check out, go ahead and check them out. Now, on to the movie review, and then we're going to end off this episode of the podcast. So the movie review I'll be reviewing today is one of Netflix's newer films starring Chris Hemsworth, which is Extraction. It's about a guy who is hired to rescue this kid who has been kidnapped, and finds out that another person has been hired to save this kid, and that way it kind of screws over his team and just messes up his mission. And so he has to try to find a way to get this kid to safety without all this chaos happening, and which it does. So this movie is one of Netflix's really successful films, which has been watched by over 90 million people, whatever, which is due to, everybody being stuck in the crib. But how is the movie? The movie is actually pretty decent. It is actually pretty decent. If you are a fan of John Wick or Sicario and stuff like that, this movie kind of melts both of those in. One thing that you would just notice is that the action scenes and the fight scenes are just completely incredible. Like, the fight choreography was just done like extremely well. It puts you in the mind frame of John Wick. That's why I said it's like a John Wick mixed with Sicario, because you got the John Wick moves inside of a movie that looks like, that has the grittiness, the blood, and the just dirtiness of what Sicario was, and it has a realistic look and feel to it. Like that movie does, and that's one of the things that I really liked about it. When you see Chris Hemsworth, in a sense, he's never clean in this movie. Like, he is dirty, sweaty, and blood and all that stuff. Like, it is like a completely realistic take on just like this story, and I kind of like that it's not over Hollywoodized, even though it does have some Hollywood type trope or action tropes and stuff like that. It is more realistic than it is a Hollywood centric type of movie. And it has certain shots where they are long shots, but just in the way it is, you can tell where it's been cut at, because you will have like a long shot of, just following Chris Hemsworth and this kid through this through like this building, or just you following them through this action scene. And then at certain points where certain things like kind of like get in front of the camera real quick, you could tell that was a cut scene, but the way it was done, it was actually pretty good. It was actually pretty good, and I enjoy scenes like that. Long takes, no matter if it is an actual long take or if it's a long take that's supposed to look like it's an actual long take, done pretty well. But one of the fights up in the movie, the first fight, was kind of edited and it was hard to follow, but the stuff that I was able to like follow or able to catch or whatever was pretty awesome. But like I said, the action scenes were like some of the best things out of this whole movie. The emotional aspect didn't really work on me, as far as like you get to know Chris Hemsworth's character and everything else, and just a little bit of his background and just kind of the reason why he is the way he is. And I don't know, I just really didn't feel it. But Chris Hemsworth, I did like his performance. He did do well. The kid in the movie, not so good. I mean, he wasn't horribly bad, but he was serviceable, real serviceable. And the movie does have some predictability at 2 points in the movie. I'm not gonna say where, or whatever, but it was just like I knew two specific things were gonna happen, and so it was like, yeah, whatever. But yeah. Anyway, this movie is worth checking out. It's definitely worth checking out. It's a hit. It's not one of the best action films or whatever, but when it does its action, it does it really well, and whoever's watching it is going to enjoy it. So much that there is a sequel in talks of this movie, and that's not giving away the ending. It's not giving away the ending at all. But this is something that you can look up, and there is a sequel in talks. So I'm kind of curious of where they're gonna go with this story. But in any case, that wraps up my review, as well as that wraps up this podcast. Like, thank you guys for checking me out and listening to this episode. And if you like what you've heard, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Other than that, I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out. Hey, before you guys leave, make sure you hit that like button as well as that subscribe button. And you see that little bell? Make sure you hit that to turn on your notifications. That way you'll be notified for anything that appears on my channel. Hope to see you guys next time. Peace out.